Welcome back
to the Dozens
and the Dozens.
We are so glad that you are with us once again in the back corner.
It is always. Oh, let that drop.
Just take a moment there in your car and dance.
Something you want to do? Does that bring up the Maritimer in you, Dr. B?
Stirs the energies.
Are you a dancer? You a dancing kind of guy?
Do I look like a dancer?
Yes. Oh, I mean, you're tall and lithe.
Yeah. I could envision how you would dance.
Totally. Yeah, I can envision it too.
Well, welcome. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.
Yep.
Go to our website, leave a review, all that good stuff. But before we go any further, we've already heard from our guest in the back corner, but we want to give him a proper introduction. Our guest today is a living legend in local church leadership in Atlantic Canada. Pastor B led the Wesleyan Church in Moncton, New Brunswick, now called Tidal Church, for over 40 years and saw it go from a pretty typical little church to a growing, vibrant, evangelistically effective church that for many years was the largest in the region. Since his retirement from leading that congregation, he's dedicated his life to serving other churches and leaders by helping them believe in what God can do through them and to have the security to pursue it. He is chronically encouraging, pathologically positive, endlessly energetic, and every day is the best day he's ever had. He is the Reverend Dr. Laurel David Buckingham, but you can call him Pastor B. Please welcome L.D. Buckingham!
How's that for an intro?
That's the best introduction I've had since I got an AI introduction speaking to a bunch of pastors the other day.
Oh, boy.
It was totally AI.
And it was better than me?
And no, not
I was
even
gonna
close.
say.
Not even close.
I was about to have to go toe-to-toe with ChatGPT.
Yeah, step back, ChatGPT.
There we go.
It is good to have you here, Dr. B.
Yeah, so
Great
glad
to
you're
be
here.
here.
We've had a few of our heroes in the back corner, and you, sir, would be part of that.
Well, that's great.
That
That's a
crew.
high compliment.
You are, man.
Tell you what.
We were, before we pressed record, we talked at lunch, and we're celebrating some of the good things happening at King's Church, and we weren't just trying to blow smoke, a lot of the stuff that not just our church is experiencing, but several churches in Atlantic Canada, especially ones that have gotten larger, wouldn't have happened without what God did through your leadership over the decades.
Yeah.
You pioneered and made space for us
The
to
decades.
flourish. And the decades. Yeah. You
know,
really
that
did.
word pioneering is exactly how I felt.
I bet.
During that time, because it was unprecedented for this region. I had no examples, nobody to look to talk to. You just kind of fumbled away and made all kinds of mistakes, and but saw some good things happen.
Yeah. I feel your pain some on that.
I'm
like
sure
we're
you do.
trying to carve out some new space. And
Well, you're pioneering again.
It doesn't come easy, for sure.
Yeah.
So my respect level for you continues to climb the longer I sit in the seat I've been sitting in, and to think that you did it for decades.
Yeah.
Hats on. Hats. Speaking of hats, we've got some swag for you. Oh, dropping it here. I don't know if you're a hat guy, but maybe when you're out in the boat,
I am a hat guy.
the back corner hat for you to keep you from getting a sunburn this summer. I expect to see that backwards while you're behind the wheel.
Backwards
of your bow rider.
I can do that.
And there's something for when you're washing the car, a little back corner
thank you
T-shirt.
very much.
So
Appreciate that.
yeah,
Very
I know
good.
you probably won't be wearing it to business meetings or anything like that, but.
Well,
hey,
if I were to follow your guys' example, I would.
You got something to say about that?
I think that was a general rebuke. We just received a general rebuke.
Feel a certain type of way about how we...
No, that wasn't a rebuke.
I mean, you're not even wearing your cufflinks today, though, sir.
No,
So
that's
I'm
amazing. Hey, there's something wrong here.
That's great. Well, we got an official sponsor today. Today's official sponsor is LDB Mentoring. If you'd like Pastor B to provide you or your church with coaching, consultation, or speaking, you can find him at ldbmentoring.com.
Yes, sir.
That's ldbmentoring.com.
Interesting.
And if you ask Pastor B to come to your church, feel free to request that he wear his back corner hat and T-shirt.
Yes.
I thought you were going to say my cufflinks, suit, and tie.
He'll wear those too if you ask.
Yeah, my favorite thing, like you have been a huge blessing to a lot of pastors and churches in the region, outside of your ministry that you ran at Moncton Wesleyan over the years. And I love just the stories that you've gone in and been able to help, some churches begin to make some adjustments that lead to growth and health. And if you are part of the dozens, one of the dozens that has a church or a pastor that maybe could use some coaching,
Yeah.
And no pastor, in my opinion, no pastor that should be pastoring is going to get too offended if they have some people that have a heart to see their church, flourish. So you can check out ldbmentoring.com. He did not ask us to do this, by the way.
No, I didn't. I'm surprised, to be truthful, but
we never asked permission to make people our sponsors.
Yeah.
On that, you guys are kind of hanging loose, so here I go interjecting. But one of the things that I have been doing of late is mentoring, coaching, and I'm doing mentoring on a one-on-one of some people I really feel great about investing in, and some really pretty outstanding leaders, to be truthful. But the coaching comes as a result of things you touch on that they're going through, and they're in a safe place where it's a one-on-one. They're far more open to discuss those things and talk about them.
Sure.
So we can pick up on that and take it a little further. Sorry about all that, guys.
No,
That
that's
was
awesome.
a shameless thing to do.
Listen, we're not here to have shame.
No, we aren't, and we didn't ask. We didn't ask because we knew you wouldn't want the fanfare, but we actually do think it's a worthy cause worth mentioning.
Absolutely.
So,
One of the things I love about the work you're doing, Pastor B, too, is how interdenominational it is. Like how you're helping Baptists and Pentecostals and Anglicans and whoever else shows up, and I love that heart for the church.
As far as I know, we have worked with every evangelical denomination in Atlantic Canada, and some that wouldn't necessarily be considered evangelical, but are.
Wow.
Yep.
That's
Well,
awesome.
and you have again talk about pioneering and operating in your slipstream. The Atlantic Kingdom Alliance exists. We're trying to build this thing on the back of a lot of the work you did with the Buckingham Leadership Network and those connections you made across denominational lines.
Unofficial sponsor, Atlantic Kingdom Alliance.
Yes, sir.
Or
By the way,
AtlanticKingdomAlliance.com.
a great concept, too. That concept is tremendous, I think, and I'm glad that it's being done.
Well, it's coming along.
I've got an unofficial sponsor.
Oh, hit it.
Vitamin D. Vitamin D. Today's episode has been brought to you by the letters Vitamin D. Been needing it.
Yeah.
Feeling the need for it. I was at the gym. Caught a glimpse of my leg in the mirror. And realized I was at like the translucent phase of whiteness.
There you go. I mean, if it's bothering you that bad, they do have tanning beds there.
Yeah,
but-
I don't. That seems like a bad idea to me on multiple levels.
Yeah.
But yeah, I could use some sunshine. I almost see my veins.
I work in a windowless basement, and so sometimes I go upstairs and I forget that the sun is already set. Like I'll come in the day, and then that's always such like when you can see it set, it doesn't strike you as hard.
Yes.
But you push the door open and you're expecting it to be sunny, and it's just
Very
dark.
disappointing.
It's just it can be hard on the head. So
I just
I'm with you. I
recently
like
went to
sunshine.
Florida and was there for a week when it was warm in the mornings, went out warm at night. The next week it turned cold. I think it was yesterday. It was colder in Orlando than it was in the capital of Greenland.
Yeah, my mother sent a
goodness.
picture of the lake out in front of their trailer. It's frozen in Florida. Wow. So I was like, serves you right.
My wife was down there in November, and they went looking for alligators, and they were all hiding because it was so cold.
Yeah. Well, hey, should
Interesting.
have stayed here.
That's what I
Should have
told her.
stayed here. Ron, let's fire up the teletype machine. You know what a teletype machine is?
I have an idea.
Yeah. I didn't know.
No, he remembers when it was invented.
Yeah. So Ron likes to collect a bit of random research. What are we
Yes.
researching today, Ron?
I want to know how you prefer to intake your books. Do you like audiobook, physical book, maybe Kindle?
Great question.
How do you like it? How do you like
Best
to take your books in?
medium for reading. What's your opinion? Maybe let's say if you had to pick one.
Oh. See, now for me, the challenge is fiction versus nonfiction are different things for me.
Yep, I agree.
So if we're talking fiction, audiobooks all day long, I could never imagine actually reading a physical fiction book. It's too much work. I'm a slow reader. But I would, for me, if I'm reading, for comprehension, if I'm reading something, theology, leadership, whatever, something I want to be able to retain but also reference back, I find that ebook on my iPad, specifically on my iPad, I've had an actual Kindle and I didn't find it as good, but I think I can scroll and that does something to my brain. I think my brain feels like I'm making more progress because I can constantly just scroll a little bit, sort of like the whole short chapters or short pages thing. And the other thing is there's on Kindle or iBooks sometimes, but on Kindle you can change the font.
Yep.
And there's a font called Open Dyslexic that makes it a little
Really?
easier for
And
my.
it does help?
Yeah, it's not like a miracle, but it does seem to help some. And there's like a little reading ruler function you can use that I find helpful. So for my particular set of learning disabilities, I find I find the Kindle app on my iPad to be the ideal.
I like it. And you can let us know in the comments what you like. What do you have an opinion on this, Dr. B? Do you mix it up at all?
Did you find it hard to make the switch from scrolls to books?
It's a difference. Isn't that wild?
Oh, the slander. Respect your...
And the creativity of that mind. It's amazing. No, I listen to audiobooks while I'm walking, but and it's usually not something that I have to really know a lot about.
Right.
It's sometimes biographies and so on and so on. But I'm almost ashamed to admit this, and I don't read a wide spectrum of books. What I do read, I want to read something that's going to really, truly help me in whatever it is that wherever it is I need help. And so for me, I have to have the book in front of me and go over it and over it and over it in order for me to get that down in my heart and mind and emotions and all the rest. And boy, there's some books that I practically got memorized, because they were so important to me.
What would be a couple of those? What would be your two or three top books?
You're so young, you wouldn't even have heard of this book. But The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People
by Stephen Covey.
Come on.
I'm not that young, sir. You're just that old.
Yeah, there you go.
I kid.
Oh, no, you're not kidding. But anyway,
were you my? No, I was gonna say you were my age when I was born, but that's not true. But close to it. Anyways, I kid because I love
the longevity is incredible.
It is, dude. I'd kill to have that energy now.
I taught from that book. I read it over and over. Other books by Covey have had a mighty impact on me, and then of course there's been other great books as well. But I won't get into all that.
Yeah, my take, Ron, is that's a complicated. If I had to pick one, I guess I'd have to pick like a hard copy book, like more of the apocalypse. If there was no power.
Yeah, I suppose.
But typically, I like you. I do a lot of audio.
Yeah.
But it has to. I'm either doing. I realize an audiobook that I'm not going to retain it at a level like you do.
Yeah.
So I'll either do it audio for fiction or light reading, or something that I'm not sure I really want to dive deep on. I'll give it a once over audiobook, and then if I really need to soak it, I'll get. Usually a Kindle. So I do have a Kindle. I like the Kindle. It seems like it's kind of the best of both worlds. Your point about the scrolling is nice.
Yeah.
But I like not having the blue light of my phone or the iPad. So I do a lot of Kindle reading, and I like the ability to highlight on Kindle, and then you can search.
Yeah.
You can pull up all your highlights quickly, which I like that for sermon prep and stuff.
You can do that in the Kindle.
I know I'm not supposed to be asking questions, but when you guys do your reading, for the most part,
you are supposed to. This is the back corner. It's a conversation. You can ask whatever you want.
There's no agenda.
Yeah. When would you do most of your reading? Would you say?
So where a lot of where probably 70% of my reading's audio. So anytime I'm in the car, walking the dog, at the gym, I'm plowing through audiobooks.
Sure.
So I would say in the last 4 or 5 years, widened my range of what I'll read. And I've started to find the value of reading fiction or just stuff for the sake of just enjoyment. I didn't do that for a long time, but I do a lot more of that now. But yeah, it's anytime there's dead air, anytime I'm driving, I've got my headphones in and I'm constantly at 1.5 speed. Usually, I can't go any faster than that because they don't sound like real people talking. Yeah. But that's typically my.
John Maxwell sounds like a real person at 2 times speed.
Yeah. When you listening to stuff at like 1.5 speed, and then you go back to 1, it's like they must have intentionally read very slow. Yeah. But
every now and again, when I'm not here on Sunday and I need to listen to your sermon from Sunday to know where I'm picking up the next week, and I'll watch it at 1.5, and I'll forget that I did that.
Yeah.
I'm like, what's up with Brent's voice? I was like, has he got a reverse cold that he's all high pitched,
higher register?
Yeah, and then I'm like, oh, no, I'm
so you
watching
listen to all of his sermons, do you?
Most of them.
Yeah, we're usually picking up after each other, so it's kind of worth knowing.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't lie and say I did before I worked here, but now that I'm the tag team partner, I got to kind of know where I'm picking up. And
for sure.
I a lot of audiobooks for me and podcasts, and just like you, whenever there's like I'm in the shower, I'll have my phone playing playing something, driving down the road, wherever else. For me, audiobooks, if it's a subject I'm interested in, but I don't think I'll be going back to reference it, like that's the big thing for me is it's hard to reference an audiobook.
That's right.
Or if it's a subject I'm trying to dive into and this is just like, am I interested in this area of theology or am I interested in this thing? Then I'll just listen to an audiobook, and if I like it, then I'll maybe grab a paper book or whatever.
If it's narrative in style, I definitely will go audio. You know what I'm reading right now or listening to is Dominion by Tom Holland.
Tom Holland,
awesome book.
I've got that on my on my phone.
It's basically, if you want like a really well put together like Christian history in story form, it's the best I've seen. It's
by a guy who is a very legit historian and not a devout Christian.
Yeah, he's warm.
Oh yeah, but not. He wouldn't like. He's not a Christian apologist coming at this from the position of this is all really, really good, and I have to explain to you why. He actually first he wrote a book on Islam, and I think basically when he confronted, if I understand correctly, when he kind of confronted the worldview of Islam, he said this does not explain the West.
Yeah,
and so he tried to figure out what was the deal with like why Western culture has a lot of the strengths and the freedoms and all that kind of stuff that it has, and he concluded it's because it's a deeply Christian culture.
Yeah,
even the secularists are deeply Christian culturally, right?
He said something along these lines, and actually in N.T. Wright, I'm reading this book too right now, N.T. Wright's A Vision for Ephesians. It's his like commentary on Ephesians. Both those guys said something along the lines of, if the original apostles, like if the apostle Paul could have time traveled to 2026, there'd be many things he's appalled by, but his first thing would be like, it's working. Like that, that Christianity is fundamentally shifting the world.
Yeah.
And that like some of the things that you and I take for granted, like freedom and the value of human dignity and like
not eating people.
Yeah, legitimately. Even in technology, science, Holland talks about like the invention of charities.
Yeah.
And orphanages, hospitals, and
that was all
colleges,
Christians.
and like it's all Christians that did it.
Yeah.
As a direct response to the gospel taking root. And you forget that because you grow up in it, right? It's like what's that opening line in that speech where it's like there's two young fish swimming down the water, and they come up to an intersection, and the older fish swims by and says, "How's the water, boys?" And the two young fish look and say, What's water?
Yeah.
Right. And like you're in it, so you don't realize you're in it. And it's like, that's one of the cool benefits. Hearing Tom Holland talk about how Christianity has shaped the Western world.
There's this line people will use sometimes where they'll say like, just be good for goodness sake. Like you don't need religion. You don't need to tell. And you go like, no,
that's a Christian thing.
Right. Your whole framework for what good is like even people who would say they're not, or even anti-Christian. Yeah. But they're like, no, you just love your neighbors. Like, where that came from, who came up with that, right?
Yeah.
It's like, just forgive people. It's like, you know where that comes from.
Just
right?
treat people with dignity.
Yeah.
Right? Like,
yeah. People have worth just because they're people. That's literally made in the image of God. That's basic Christian theology. Yeah. That was not the belief before.
Holland said too, and I listened to his, we're all over the place here, but let's go there. He talked about the Reformation.
Oh, yeah.
And how that the Reformation created how it created Protestantism, and even things today that we as Christians we maybe don't like you take the progressive kind of woke movement. His whole take is that is a form of Protestantism.
Absolutely.
Like it's a form of protest, and that we have the right, the inalienable right to be able to stand up and call you on your crap.
Yep.
Like that's actually, so even the purple-haired lefties have taken our thing.
Well, and he'll talk about too how that the Protestant idea that I get to decide what the Bible means, has then just become, I get to decide what truth is, right? So it is, there's an interesting kind of cuts both way dynamic to it.
So check out Tom Holland. I mean, I thank you for that. I mean, took me a little while to get in on the Rest is History podcast.
Fantastic.
Great podcast. And then I got that Dominion book. I'm almost done. It's been phenomenal. So Dominion by Tom Holland. Check it out.
To the question we started with of how do I do my reading or when do I do my reading? If I have to read something that requires retention, so I'm studying it, it's going to be part of sermon prep, something like that. I am such a weak reader, but also so task oriented that I literally have to add every chapter of it to my to-do list, and it'll pop up, like it'll be scheduled for a chapter a day. I won't schedule it for days I'm off or that kind of thing, or if there's a day I know I'm really going to be busy. So there's a book I just had to read like 7 chapters, and so it took me about 2 weeks, and just a chapter pops up in my to-do list every day, and it just gets done at the office while I'm grinding away. And then because that part in you that goes, oh, like, what do I have to get done today? It keeps back to Covey, right? It's usually important but not urgent. Mm-hmm. And if I put it on my to-do list, it feels urgent, and then I get it done.
Yes, I guess I'm going to say my overall is audiobook, just because it's serving me the most. Mm-hmm. And because of that, I probably read 70 to 85 books a year. And I would never be able to accomplish that. Yeah. Or else I'd get in a lot of car accidents, with my head in a book trying to drive. So, let's jump into our first segment. There's some news we want to talk about.
Yeah. So, at the time of recording, Conservative Party of Canada leader Pierre Poilievre has just survived a leadership review, meaning he will lead the party in the next federal election. Meanwhile, his presumed main rival in that next election, Liberal leader and current Prime Minister Mark Carney, is riding an upward surge in his approval ratings on the back of his recent speech at Davos. We'll all weigh in on this, but Pastor B, you are widely respected for your great leadership ability, and you've seen more prime ministers and presidents come and go than any other guest we've had in the back corner. Specific policies aside, at least for now, what do you think makes a great leader in the political sphere?
Well,
great prime minister, great president, great king or queen, I guess.
Who are your favorites? Let's start with that.
That's one of my favorites. Was not necessarily a great leader, but it was just because he was so colorful.
Sir John A. Macdonald.
Oh man, alive! I can't keep up with this guy at all.
Man.
Was John Diefenbaker? He was a colorful person. I remember I was in the airport one time in Moncton when I first went to Moncton, and he was there when security wasn't a big deal, but he wasn't prime minister, and I'll never forget it. I went over and introduced myself, which I would not have done if I had thought, but I just spontaneously did it. And he found out that I was a minister, and I remember him saying, these draft dodgers we have in our country today, they wouldn't be here if I were prime minister.
Wow.
And that was back during the Vietnam days and so on. And but I've heard him in Parliament get some stuff on Trudeau that was just unbelievable. Anyway, but that didn't necessarily. I think, of course, it's my old singing my old song here. A leader who is secure and is not threatened, and can see things objectively. If you're threatened and fearful and insecure, you cannot be objective.
Yeah.
And you're going to take the simple and make it complicated rather than taking the complicated and simplifying it.
Yes.
And maybe I shouldn't be saying this out loud about Diefenbaker, but I think he had insecurities, that he was even threatened by people in his own cabinet. But as far as the public was concerned, he had one of the greatest landslides of any prime minister, just because they saw his great communication skills, and there was a great need. But that doesn't necessarily last.
I don't think anybody in the dozens of listeners that we have would be able to dispute how Diefenbaker's political career went or didn't. So you can say whatever you want about him. We'd be like,
And we got a few people who might have been around for Diefenbaker.
Well, yeah, I suppose that's true.
No, I think you're bang on with to me, I think that's what's missing largely, especially right now, is like, where are those, not just security, but like, one of my favorite things, one of my mentors, you have been one as well, but Kevin Myers, says, one of the main things a leader needs to do is absorb stress.
Yeah.
Like you need to be a non-anxious presence that actually, when you walk into the room, people settle into that. They don't actually, the anxiety doesn't come up, that you absorb stress. Yeah. And I think the best leaders in history have done that. I mean, that's what Churchill did, right? Yeah. Like he's like, and he mobilized that country to, just true heroics, and basically was able to absorb stress.
I think I really feel strong and with deep conviction about the importance of objectivity. I know I said that, but I want
what does that mean? Yeah, help people.
Just being able to see things as they really are, instead of seeing things as you are. If you're an insecure, fearful person.
What are some tips to get out of yourself to be able to be objective?
There's quite a long response.
Hey, man, that's why we're here. We're here to learn.
Have you ever seen a political leader that you think has a lot of insecurity?
Is there any without it?
Well, no,
not many.
I think there's been a few, but I think my big thing is, if you're going to be a secure person, you've got to have the right center. And a center to me is what is most important to you. There are people who are money-centered and have all kinds of other centers, but the right center for us is being Christ-centered. And so you have to define from what you understand, who you understand Christ to be. And I see him as someone who's always concerned about how he can make others feel about them and how he could add value to their lives, how he could help their life to be at the fullest, but was never concerned about what anybody would think about him. And I'm telling you what, that is to me, the biggest factors in leadership. Get your mind off of yourself, and your own interests, and be focused on the interests of others. And then when you go down that road and you really are seeking to build other people up, you can't stop it coming back to you so that you get built up as a result of building other people up. But that's not the reason for doing it.
It seems to me that somewhere along the way, maybe there was never a time this wasn't true, probably there wasn't, but that with political leadership, somewhere it went from you have to get elected in order to do good, and it became you have to get elected. That's the highest, like that's the point. And then you try to do a little bit of good so you get reelected.
Yeah.
And so there's almost like built into democracy a need to be a little bit self-serving in order to stay in power. And I think what most of them convince themselves of is that the highest good is for me to be in charge. And so whatever I've got to do to get there is worth doing. And then if I can do something like then, and whatever I've got to do to stay there. And that, I think that's one of the things that makes any sort of elected leadership like that very hard to be selfless, because you have to on some level want the position and think it's good for you to be in it, which then almost innately turns you in on yourself a little bit.
Well, almost always the best leaders actually don't want that job.
Yes.
Like almost always they're like, even to go back to, the archetype, Jesus, Father, take this cup from me.
Yeah.
Like, can we do this any other way? But there's like this ownership and responsibility that comes from caring more for others than yourself. And it just seems, and I don't like to just assume the motives of every politician. It might be, back to the water comment, it might just be the environment of democracy like that. It just, it leads to, true, like, leaders who have nerve, compassion, conviction, character. Like it doesn't seem to produce that. Yeah. It seems to almost produce, why are you in this in the first place? Is always the question I have for a lot of them.
Well, and if you assume that the answer to that, which is not, I don't think a safe assumption, but it's not uncommon, is so I can do good.
Right.
But you have to get into power to do that good. And so then I think getting into power, like it's even if you're altruistic toward your end, the means become self-serving because I have to get into power, right? And so I think you get this like, well, maybe, if if someone waved a wand and I was in charge tomorrow, I could do 100% of the good I want to do. But I'm going to have to sacrifice 25% of that to get in power and do the other 75%. Or you know what I mean? I'm going to have to.
That is what politics is,
totally.
right? It's like, that is politics.
It's a series of compromises.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. I just wish that those compromises were more often policy-based than moral-based. That it seems like in these days, it's more often moral compromise than policy compromise.
Yeah, yeah. I definitely agree more and more with, you know, like, I don't know if it was C.S. Lewis that said it or Chesterton, but like of the options of human government.
The democracy is the worst form of government.
The worst.
Except for all the other ones we've ever tried.
Except for all the other ones. You know, I'm more and more convinced we need a perfect king.
Yeah.
You know, and that's what the world was built for. On the you know, the more recent Carney's speech at Davos.
Yeah.
I watched that, and I'm not a huge Carney guy. I mean, I haven't voted Liberal in a very long time, if ever. I think I might have when I was like 20 something, you know, but it's funny how that changes.
Been Green Party ever since, that way.
Yeah. No, but I was thinking about, like, he really did. Well, a lot of people push back on him, saying, like, he's mentioned about, like, the New World Order. A lot of people didn't like that language, which, again, I don't think that was wise language to use. But you think about what he's doing in relationship with Trump, and, like, what do you do with a bully that you know you can't beat up?
Yeah.
You know, there comes a point at which, like, if you know, remember the old thing, a bully would grab your hands and start hitting you with them. Why are you hitting yourself?
Stop slapping yourself.
Stop slapping yourself, right? And at a certain point, like, you know you're going to lose by doing this, but I'm just going to take my hands down and say no.
Yeah.
You know, you can punch me, but I'm not letting you do that. And there's a part of me that I was like, you know what? I'm kind of proud he just stepped up and said, we're not going to let you bully us.
Yep.
You know, like, we're calling.
Yeah.
If you want to invade, you want to take us over, you can do that. But we're not playing this game anymore. I appreciated that.
Yep.
You know,
I'm with you. I got no, I don't know, like this idea that the United States, we all have to kowtow to them because they're the greatest thing ever or whatever. Like, they're big and they're strong, but they're also interdependent with other people too, right?
Very much.
And so it's, you know, and they're not the only game in town, right? So it's one of those, like, yeah, if we can have, even on the economic front, and I'm not smart enough about economics to know, like, the details of the deals he's made, but that idea of, like, what if we diversified our portfolio and we had trade deals with 27 other nations instead of most of it all being with one or two?
Yeah.
That
I don't
seems
know
to
what
make
else you
sense to
do.
me.
What else you do, right? Like,
Yeah.
The thing that I fear, I don't know if maybe we're getting too far in the weeds. The thing that I fear is, I do think in the next 30 to 50 years, there's going to be an increasing, like, Western and Eastern hemisphere economies of trade.
Yeah.
And I think Canada looking off continent is going to end up being a waste of time, one way or the other. Like, I think,
Like, even Europe.
yeah, like, I think the reason, you know, Trump, one of the reasons he's really after Mexico and Canada is, like, if Mexico, Canada, and the United States were a cohesive unit, there would be no need for international trade. But there's
a political expedience to international trade, though, in preventing war.
Yeah, for sure. But I mean, we have, again, like, this is not a Christian mindset by any means, but there's an argument to be made, like, that North America is completely water isolated. They don't need to, you know, they don't need to trade with the East at all. We have enough natural resource, and, you know, like, I don't know.
But you want to be economically codependent with other countries so they won't invade you. Like, what keeps China at bay? The reason I'm not worried about China having a giant army and $1 billion is because they got the $1 billion from us, and so they're not going to want to blow up their best customer.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I don't know. I guess we need Jesus.
Yeah, I'm team Maranatha. Come on back, Lord.
Yeah, exactly right. Exactly. Any other thoughts on the current landscape? Or you're just not paying attention anymore?
I'm paying attention to what you guys are saying, but I'm staying out of it.
Too much of a diplomat, eh?
Love it.
Yeah, yeah. Well, let's jump into our next segment. We have a segment called "Keep It or Sweep It," and in this segment, what we do is we submit a kind of debatable subject, and you got to decide whether it's something we should embrace and hold on to, or something we need to get rid of. So keep or sweep. So today, here's the late and legendary evangelist Billy Graham seems like on
one.
Seems what?
Seems like one.
Seems like wow. Yeah, sorry.
That's a typo. Sorry.
So Billy Graham was a highly prominent Christian figure in the past century. And he's one of the few to make it through his career without some sort of major sex scandal. Many attribute this, at least in part, to his widely touted Billy Graham rule, which dictated that he never, under any circumstance, was alone with a woman other than his wife in a private setting. For many years, this was seen as the gold standard of conduct for male ministry leaders. Recently, though, it has come under some scrutiny, claiming that it sees every woman as primarily a potential temptation or sexual partner, that it limits the ability of male pastors to mentor female pastors the way they would their male counterparts, and that with the greater awareness, if not incidents of sexual behavior, it still leaves a person open to, if not temptation, at least accusation. The Billy Graham rule: keep it or sweep it. What's your thoughts on that, Dr. B?
What was your policy through your ministry time?
I think in general, the Billy Graham rule is a good rule and should be adhered to as much as is reasonable. I do think it's just a little bit legalistic in that there are situations that, for the sake of the cause of Christ, for the sake of helping people in their journey or whatever, I'm not thinking of any particular scenario, but to just be that rigid and that legalistic, it might have more negative ramifications.
Yeah.
That's pretty general, I know. I'm never once ever said anything negative about the Billy Graham rule. That's not something, but since you asked me the question, if I were to be open and honest, I would think that there might be an occasion here now and again, and I'm not even thinking of any particular, maybe somebody's in a desperate strait and you need to help them in some way, give them a ride or something. And it would be the furthest thing from anybody's mind that there be anything bad about it. It's just to carry out your role as a person who cares and has compassion.
Yeah. No, reminds you of the Good Samaritan, right? Like the guys on their way to Jerusalem, their legalism kept them from just doing the basic decent thing.
Yeah.
You know. So that's a great. So I think you probably. We would call that a soft keep. You're keeping it with contingencies.
It's the first time I've ever in my life verbally gave my opinion.
Yeah.
So you guys
on anything or just this?
Just on that.
Because I'd debate if you're saying anything.
What's your thoughts, AJ? Keeping or sweeping?
I'm going to go with a soft sweep.
Okay.
I think you have to have some level of self-awareness and some level of awareness of the people you're working with to know when there is some realistic risk of either you being attracted to that woman or her being attracted to you, which is not always the same thing, right? And I do get the whole dynamic of a lot of times male pastors can come across to some ladies in their congregation as some sort of ideal, like he loves Jesus and he's soft and he's tender and he's, so I get that there's that dynamic there. But I do one of the things that I've been, always had a lot of ladies on my staff team. And I can't imagine going like, we can't sit in my office and hash out the calendar for the next 3 months unless there's somebody, like we have to leave the door open and have the, one of the other staff watching or whatever. Or if we were, going to a prayer meeting 10 minutes down the road, we could take the same car. Now if we were going on a weekend conference or whatever, we'd certainly, it's not like we'll share a room and save money. Like, I'm not talking about being stupid, or there have been times, like even when I was a youth pastor, I remember a situation where there was a girl in the youth group who you could just, I don't know what she didn't get in her growing up years, but you could tell she really craved male attention. And I was very careful about making sure that I was never anywhere remotely close to one-on-one with her, let alone, just, you know what I mean? Not even in a one-on-one conversation on the other side of the room. But yeah, I think there are times like, I don't know, I often hear people talk too about like, you shouldn't hug women in the church. And like, I remember once being at a funeral and this woman had lost her husband. She was just heartbroken. And I'm like, I'm not going to just do a little, like, I gave her a big old hug, you know what I mean? And she cried on my shoulder and thanked me for it. Like, I remember being at a funeral once of a lady who had, now this was sitting in front of her husband and her whole family. But this lady who was older than me, but not wildly older than me, had lost her son. And we were just sitting kind of in this side room at the church before the funeral. And I could just tell like she needed some support. And I reached over and held her hand, and it's like, I don't know. Isn't that what happened when the woman comes and she cries and touches Jesus' feet and all the Pharisees are going like, you can't touch her. Like, can't let a woman like that touch you. You know what I mean? Like, that's not appropriate. And he's like, dude, read the room. Yeah. Like, this is not some weird sexual thing. Right. Like, this is, and so I think you have to be very sensitive to those things. I think you have to be very aware of those things. I think you have to be realistic with yourself and like, just be man enough to go like, I think this woman is attractive and I need to be careful for myself. Or I'm picking up that she's not just looking for a little biblical wisdom here or something, you know what I mean? And be aware of that. And if you don't know who the person is, be all the more caught, like if it's a stranger or whatever. And never a bad thing. Like if I was going even to meet like in a coffee shop with a lady that I didn't know too well who she was, I'd just let my wife know the meeting's happening so that if anyone says anything later, like, what are the odds this guy texted his wife, hey, I'm getting together with so-and-so, Yeah. And then we proceeded to carry out a big torrid love affair or whatever. Yeah. So, but yeah, I think it can be a little hard and fast. I do think it unintentionally is kind of degrading to women.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Sees them as again, just all potential Jezebels or whatever.
Again, I wouldn't want to make a judgment on this, but it seems like it probably was a good thing for Billy Graham. I mean, there's more to it than him just being a pastor or a preacher.
Yes, he was
famous.
Yeah.
And there are people just wanting to see somebody like him fall or fail. And so he had to be more diligent maybe than most of us would have to be. But at the same time, we have to be.
And he also wasn't anybody's pastor.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean? Like he had his team and his associates, and he had the freedom to build his ministry.
I think you hit the guiding principle. Like, at least as I think of it, I think the more people that know your name and are looking to you, the more you have to be optics aware.
Yeah.
Yes.
I don't think he did that because he felt that he was such a irresistible temptation to a woman, or that he couldn't control himself. I think it was more about what could people say, and it's fleeing the appearance of evil. And so for me, that's why I'm going soft keep. And I felt the need for this more and more as like, I hate the word platform, but it's like my platform has grown and more people know who I am. I need to be more aware of you can't control what people think, but I can at least keep like fuel off the fire, and if I'm constantly being out seen, having one-on-one dinners with women or that kind of stuff, it's just going to add to, even if it's 100% pure and righteous, it's just going to add to opportunity for the enemy to stir crap up. And I'll tell you what, the times we're living in doesn't take much of an accusation or someone saying, I saw him like hanging out a little too close at the gym with so-and-so. Like, I try to avoid that like the plague. I do agree. It's not fair. It's not fair to a lot of women. And you do have, even in church circles, like women in some ways, and this is a whole other conversation, but in some ways they are climbing uphill in ways that men don't have to.
Totally.
And I think that just adds another layer. So, I try to be careful within the context of our church. We have lots of women, on the staff and that I have to have interaction with all the time. But yeah, I typically, if it's somebody I don't know.
You get to?
I have to. I get to. Just doing that, getting that DEI quota.
There you go.
I typically, if I don't know the person, like there's been many times if a woman from our church wants to meet, I'll have Tracy, or somebody else sit in that meeting, just as a person that can be there as well.
The flip side of the whole size of your kind of profile or platform or whatever, though, too, is you do have a bunch of people on. Like I think of, if you're a pastor and you're the only guy in that whole, like the only person in the whole building.
I have the luxury.
Yeah, you can always have like people just have make sure there's someone down the halls. Like, what if no one works here, man?
Yeah. But a couple guiding principles for me. So it's a soft keep in that I do think about it, and I do live by it somewhat. Not in so much that it would cause me to just miss the obvious, right? Yeah. Like if I just not gonna let it dictate what Jesus would do. Yeah. But as a guiding principle, try to think about it like, what are the optics? What honors my wife?
Yeah.
Like I know I don't want her to have to do any kind of mental or heart level hurdles either. Like if some gorgeous, newly divorced woman wanted to meet up over dinner at Tondi's at 7 p.m. on a Friday, I know my wife would not like that.
I think that's one of those things too, like even just to know in yourself, like go like, seriously, bro?
Yeah.
Like
right.
That's a ministry thing.
It's just read the room.
Seriously.
Right? It's like, it's just like, so honoring my wife, optics do matter,
Totally.
And then I have a lot of transparency and accountability. Like I try to live, like there's really no compartments of my life, whether it's my calendar or my email or even my texts, that multiple people don't have access to. So if I were going to have a one-on-one meeting with a woman, that's all known knowledge, and they know where I am at what time and how long I'm going to be there. And, so it is a thing, that it's more optics for me though. Like I've never once, to date, felt uncomfortable like that a woman that I was around was like, and maybe it's just I'm not that appealing, but like I've never once felt like that.
She might have come with bad intentions, but once she got to know you, she was like, actually, I'm good.
on second thought, but I've never had that, and maybe it's just the way I've dictated my calendar.
I think
my lifestyle.
I think someone who was trying to cause trouble, and I do think it's, on the one hand, I'm staunchly against the notion of treating every woman like she's, again, just a temptation or just some, but the idea that there aren't, and I say it because we're guys here, I'm sure it works the other way too, but the idea that there aren't women who ever come to a pastor with that intent, you'd be pretty naive.
Or aren't pastors that use their position.
Totally.
Both ways, for sure.
But just to say, like, I think being blind to that as a possibility is naive. Assuming it's always the case is demeaning.
Yes.
So you got to find somewhere to thread that needle.
I'd like to go back to Billy Graham just before we move on. It would seem to me for Billy Graham, being Billy Graham, it was more right for him than it would be wrong. And if he had not had that rule and had been fairly loose about who he was alone with, the fallout would be far greater.
You hear, I'm pretty sure it was him, there's stories of them sending people, when he was checking into a hotel, they'd send someone into his room ahead of him. And there were times when someone had hired a prostitute just to jump out and like stand next to him so they could get a picture, right?
And that's that level, right?
Right.
Like
so if I ever get to the point where I think that's a possibility, I'll do the same thing.
You're not already there?
I don't ever stay at hotels, man.
But I mean,
just stay at home, sleep in my little bed.
You see other people that are household names like that.
Yeah.
And it's like, man, if there's any smoke at all, people are on that,
Totally.
like now I think you take like Martin Luther King, like there's a lot of chatter around his personal life, right? And whether that's warranted or not, the perception was there.
Yeah.
And that just leaves the thing open.
To what you were saying earlier, Brent, too, like you can't, if people are just going to make stuff up, there's nothing you can do about that. And if people are going to make wild assumptions, you can't stop them from making wild assumptions. But you do, it's almost like those connect the dot pictures. Like you can't control how they connect the dots, but you do have a fair amount of control over what the dots are.
Yes.
And right. What level of insane the conspiracy theory has to be. You know what I mean?
Right.
So if it's like, oh yeah, like, Brent was having supper at 7:00 on a Friday night with that young, that's not those two dots are pretty close together.
Right.
Whereas if it's like, yeah, no, he and Mel met with her,
right.
Wherever at the office with 6 other people there for 28 minutes.
Yeah.
Like you got to be pretty wild to think, and that's a sign.
Yeah.
Yeah.
On this subject, so you guys are supposed to be interviewing me, but I would just like to get
We're here for
We're just hanging
conversation.
out.
But
this is the back corner. It's not
do you
60
think
minutes.
There's far more moral failure today than there was 7,500 years ago?
Great question.
Or is it just better known today?
That's a great question. I do have an opinion.
I do too. That's all it is.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't have any, I don't have a stat.
I'd like your opinion because I wasn't, an adult or pastoring in the 80s.
Yeah.
So I don't really have anything to compare it to. But it seems to me people have been people for a long time, and pastors have been pastors who are people for a long time. And I don't think the ratio of failure has changed all that much. No. The opportunity to sin and to disqualify yourself might look different, but that's always been there for every pastor of every age. So you've had your own. The enemy's not been. It's like, oh, it's the 80s. There's nothing I can do. Oh, now, so like the enemy's always trying to destroy and tarnish. So that's always been, I just think we live in a time now though, where the shared experience of a pastor's fall is much more accessible. And so it feels like, and there's larger churches too. Like there weren't as many Billy Grahams. Not that there's any Billy Grahams, but there couldn't be a Billy Graham now.
Yeah.
Because that's shared by hundreds of household name pastors.
Yeah.
And of those hundreds of famous pastors, a percentage of them will crack and you're going to hear about it. There's a post that a guy out of Texas, Josh Howerton, he's got a big podcast, but he had a post where he said, the line was, thousands of planes take off and land every day. Yeah. You don't hear anything about it.
Yeah.
You hear about the one that crashed.
Yeah.
And I think that principle it might be a little heightened now that you hear more about these failures.
I mean, in 1980, would news of a pastor in Oregon having an affair ever gotten to New Brunswick?
Right.
No. You'd never know about that.
Unless it was denominationally
right.
connected.
Maybe within, and even then he would have to be a person of some prominence, right?
Yeah.
So I think, I agree with you, Brent. I think the higher profile of some of the more whatever well-known pastors these days causes you hear more. It's same like, is there more war now than there ever was before? No, there's actually less, but we hear about all of it now, right? So I think there's some of that dynamic. I also think too that it gets brought to the light a lot more now, and I think that's a good thing. I think there was a time when either it was actively like the other party involved wouldn't come forward and say the pastor and I whatever because they felt whatever, I'm going to get the blame for leading the poor pastor astray, or no one's going to believe me because he's going to deny it. Or when it did come to light, it was much more kind of hush-hush, covered up, that kind of thing. Like there's been a lot of talk lately, we'll get into this in our next episode, but about kind of cover-up culture. And I do think that's a part of that dynamic. I mean, the juiciest, the other thing I guess I would say too is sort of that same point, Brent, of, the more sheep you have, the more they scatter when the shepherd is struck, right?
Yeah.
That not even just in terms of scale of church, but duration of pastoral stay.
Yeah.
Like if you get a new pastor every 2 years, which used to be the deal, right? Then if this guy has to leave after a year and a half, like it's not that much of a shock to the church.
Right.
Right. Like, whereas now, for better, for worse, because of those longer stays, which I think the net benefit of that is there, but the churches do seem to be more tied to, even if we're not getting into some weird cult of personality thing, but just the church is more tied to that pastor.
It's a deeper, longer
just relationally, because he's been there for 15 or 20 years or whatever. When that blows up, the level of collateral damage there is huge. But the craziest in our little part of the world, the craziest, wildest like sex scandal that I know of happened in the 80s. And so like, which for me is a long time ago. That's, so I would go, in the last 30 years or whatever, I haven't seen anything on that scale. So
I wonder if it's a little easier today. I don't know. I'm just asking the question, I guess. There was such a stigma back. See, I've had the little bit of advantage of history and everything. For any of that to happen, it was just like death.
Yeah.
If somebody committed adultery, it was in that same category, or somebody being murdered.
Yeah.
It was kind of in that same.
It's a pretty grievous sin.
Yeah.
honestly.
But it was seen that way. It was felt that way. Now there's so much of it going on that it doesn't have the same. I remember, as far as I know, the first moral failure in our own denomination in this part of the world was back in the 70s, and I had to go to the church because of my position and talk to the board about the failure that we had been told about. And if I had told them their pastor had been killed in a car accident, it would have had less impact.
For sure.
Yep.
But now it seems like maybe I'm not seeing it correctly here when I say this, but it's just, one more and there's another one.
I do think that's the side effect of you hearing about so much of it. Again, whether more of it's happening, you hear there is less of a thought. And I think this is, again, ultimately not a bad thing. There is less of a thought that pastors are some sort of superhuman incapable of that. And I think the thing for those who are pastors is to also go, not just there, but for the grace of God, go I, as if, these things just happen and there's nothing you can control about it, but also to go like, dude, I got feet of clay too. Like I have to be careful. Like that, I knew that guy. He was not some horrible person. Like he made a horrible decision, but like this is not some freak thing. It takes vigilance to avoid that.
I've seen, I've been up close to several, pretty large crashes, and it does have that effect on you. Like I think it's been painful to go through that, but at the same time, it's been a gift in that, there's a real sense that God, I've seen the collateral damage of it, and it's caused me to maybe be a little more afraid of the fire than I might have been.
I can understand how kind of your average, whatever your church member, church attender too, can get a little cynical from seeing that stuff so much. But I would hope too that if not instead of, at least in addition to that cynicism, would also be like a renewed commitment to pray for your pastors. Yeah. Like, to go like, pastors aren't superhuman in anything, right? Whether it's a sexual thing or taking the money or just, being a jerk to some people because they had a bad day. Like, pray for that guy, pray for that lady. Like they are humans doing this job.
They're humans who said yes to a call and to basically stick your head up.
Totally.
In a spiritual war.
Yeah.
And that is a huge piece of it. Not to abdicate them of their responsibility and their own failures, but there are reasons why this stuff happens, and it has to do with a substantial amount of load and pressure that are on people. And if you don't have the people around you and the work of the Spirit in you at the same pace as the scale of the ministry, and I do believe
like the enemy's not stupid, and he has finite resources. Right. And so, if he comes to your church, is he going harder at the guy who comes every third Sunday and sits in the back pew and leaves early, or someone who's in some sort of leadership role, right? Someone who, and when we were launching Deepwater in Halifax, one of the lessons I did with my launch team, like in our pre-launch phase, is called "Welcome to Life with a Target on Your Back." I just said, like, if you're stepping out to be a part of this, like, I don't know what level of spiritual warfare you've experienced, what sort of assaults of the enemy, temptations, frustrations, whatever, but it's gonna get worse. So just know that, like, you just put your head up, and you're going to get shot at, and just be ready for that.
Yep. Yeah, for sure.
I would say this to the one of the things that would be different now versus in time gone by is I do think there are probably more easily accessible opportunities for having some sort of moral failing, affair, whatever, than there was a generation or two ago.
Yeah.
Not that a guy's going to accidentally fall into that, but if you have someone who is sort of halfway looking for an opportunity, it's a lot easier to find now with, dating apps and all that kind of stuff.
For sure. For sure. Well, that's been a fun conversation.
Yeah. So the Billy Graham rule, I think overall we think
there's some wisdom there.
There's some wisdom. It's maybe a good baseline. Don't be legalistic about it.
Yeah.
But, also don't be stupid.
Yeah.
Don't be dumb. So it's great.
We solved it. Well, maybe we should pick this guy's brain for a few minutes.
Yeah. We got some questions we want to ask you. Hear you wax eloquent on. We want to take advantage of your great wisdom. So here they come, just wild and crazy. How did you first come to be a pastor? And what challenges, kind of internal or external, did you have to overcome to be able to embrace that calling?
Well, the only way I can describe my calling, and I don't think we should compare callings necessarily, but it was like in some unknown, undescribable or indescribable way, I had to pastor. I had to be a preacher, and I couldn't escape it.
How old were you when you started to develop that kind of feeling?
So far back, even as a kid, it seemed like that was just on me, but it increasingly became apparent. And my problem was I didn't see how that could ever be possible because I didn't see anything good about myself. I had such an inferiority complex. I was no good at anything. I was no good on the farm that I was brought up on. I was no good in sports. I was no good in school. The worst thing in the world for me was to have to communicate in a debate or even in a testimony. It was just like a nightmare to have to do that. And so how in the world could I ever be a pastor? And it was really a dramatic situation where in a church service, I was going to Kingswood when they had a high school department, and I was in that and I'd failed 2 grades in high school. Wow. And so nobody,
wow.
Yeah.
Nobody could ever have more of an inferiority complex and less self-esteem. I didn't like the way I looked. I didn't like anything about myself.
Man.
And yet I had this thing. And when I yielded to the call, whatever you want to call it, surrendered to the call in a church service, it was a breakthrough and almost went berserk. I mean, I was so emotionally broken and I wouldn't know how to describe it. But anyway, I don't know what the question was now.
It's just on your origin story.
Yeah. What did you have to? What was that call like? What did you have to overcome, internal, external?
Well,
so obviously the insecurity is a big part of it.
My fears and insecurities and my sense of being so inadequate for what I was supposed to do and had to do.
Did it seem when you said yes to that call almost like the way that God made you sort of clicked into place and you started to figure out?
Yeah, it did.
Who I am?
And here's how crazy it was. Before I openly surrendered to the call, I took somebody in my confidence and I made them promise over and over they would never tell anybody. I remember going to a place where they sold Christian books and looking at a book on preaching and not wanting anybody to see, just like somebody looking at pornography.
Was it called Sermon Craft by A.J. Thomas?
That's a great book, by the way.
It's a great
Sermon
book.
Craft by A.J. Thomas.
Available on Amazon.
Should have it in the back corner store.
We should put it in the back corner.
And but I thought if somebody saw me looking at a book on preaching, I was just paranoid They would laugh their heads off.
Should have had the Billy Graham rule.
Never look at a book of preaching without your wife present.
She's a temptress.
And so when I told this guy, he was just like, well, what's the big deal? You know, but it was a big deal to me.
Wow.
So,
because you thought people would laugh at you if
I thought
they
they'd laugh
thought you
me
had
right under the table.
pretensions to ever be a
my
pastor.
word, I'd be...
You should have told them, what else can I do, guys? I'm no good at sports.
Well,
I'm no good on the farm.
That sounds like it
you can't do coach.
the last resort, but I was less good at being a pastor than any of those other things. So it wasn't because I couldn't do anything else. It was so it had to be a total God thing, and that's the reason I got to keep doing what I'm doing. You can, as you probably have heard said, but you can retire from a career. You can't retire from a call. If it's a real call, you feel strong. A career is what you're paid to do. A call is what you've been created to do.
Yes.
And I cannot stop until I have to stop.
So what was the process of kind of overcoming that insecurity? Because I mean, you certainly got to the point where you had a fair amount of confidence in yourself, or at least at the very least what God could do through you. Weren't someone to shy away from a challenge, weren't someone to say, well, I don't know, like you take things pretty head on. How did you get to that point?
I don't want to bog things down here, but I was asked to preach on a street corner.
Oh, wow.
My last year at high school down in Yarmouth, Nova Scotia. I went by there just recently, and there's still an empty lot there where I preached back there.
You know, it was a bad sermon.
70-some
When
years,
60 or whatever
60-some years
later, they won't even build anything
no, they
there.
won't build anything there. And
I'm sure it was just fine, sir.
And of course, I just worked myself to death to come up with something that'd be 10 minutes long, you know. And
Wow.
Didn't know how. And I had a great big Thompson Chain Reference Bible. Do you remember those old Bibles? Great big. I figure the bigger the Bible, the bigger the sermon, you know. and so, but here's an interesting thing about all of that. I'm preaching away, trying to be a Billy Graham there, and behind me was a singing group. And there was a girl in that singing group. I didn't know her that well. She was a grade ahead of me and was intimidating in some ways because she was a sharp, capable person. And she was going, amen, 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 amen. She was cheerleading.
That's awesome.
Really. She wasn't amening what I was saying.
Yeah,
she was cheerleading.
She was helping the preacher.
Really?
Yeah.
That's exactly what she was doing. And I thought of that in my sleep here about 3 years ago. I had no idea where she was, but I never, ever thanked her. I went through a long process of detective work, finally tracked her down and thanked her.
Wow.
I thanked her to her face.
Yep.
Wow.
Along with her brother. They were at Tim Hortons down in DeBert, Nova Scotia. You talk about the tears streaming down her face.
No kidding.
She knew of my ministry, but I didn't even know she'd know I was alive or dead or alive.
Wow.
You know? And
People have no idea sometimes those little encouragements they do, how God uses those in a person's life.
Just sent me. But here's another one. I was asked to preach at a youth rally here in Sussex. Kingswood wasn't at Sussex at the time.
Yep.
And they chose me to go to represent the college. Now, think of that. That made no sense. That had to be a God. I had no reputation. I was useless I wouldn't say what as useless as, but I was useless. and scared to death. I remember going out in the countryside, practicing my sermon, and first time I got through it, it was 15 minutes. I thought, man, if I can do it again, maybe I'll get 20 minutes of a sermon. And next time it was 10 minutes, so I gave up. And that night I preached. I remember the poor guy that was in charge because I looked about 3 years younger than I really was. And so I looked like a kid. But again, a God thing. I was so frozen. I'm sorry, guys, to get off on this, but to bring back a memory. We went up to pray in a little room off to the side of the platform. Everybody prayed.
Is this the little white church on Main Street? Yep.
Everybody prayed except me. I couldn't get a word out. I was frozen, scared to death.
Wow.
And during that service, a pastor got up and said, how many would like to help the preacher preach tonight? Well, no, for somebody to even say something like that, it broke something in me.
Wow.
And I thought I was Billy Graham before that thing was over with.
Wow.
Well, I mean, let's compare these two experiences. You must have gotten a lot better because you preached in Yarmouth, and they still to this day.
No,
on the street preaching.
At the street one time.
Right. You preached in Yarmouth, and they to this day won't build anything on that lot. Yeah. You preached in Sussex. They moved the whole school there.
Yeah, and they sold the church.
Yeah, that's pretty. That was I was growing up in that church when they sold it, so I'll take the blame for that.
You have a mind to go there to deduct all that stuff.
They thought, you know what? If this A.J. Thomas kid was in this church, that's enough of it. We need to get rid of it, and they sold it.
The affirmation that came from that, the way I felt, and so on. But it was. I'm telling you seriously, I'm not a mystical person. I wish I was more mystical than what I am. But there's no other way to explain all that than the power of the Holy Spirit.
Yeah. Yep.
You've always been such an intentional encourager. I assume it was intentional when you started. Now I think you just can't help yourself, but you're so encouraging. Do you think some of that is because other people being encouraging like that to you was so important early in your journey?
I really don't know. I think it could be. It could be. I haven't really thought that through. But here's what really hit me hard in my insecure, inferior days when I saw what Jesus did. It was always to build other people up. It seemed always to build people up, give them life more abundantly. He came that you might live, and I just feel like most people have more put-downs than they do encouragement. And there came a point where I had to get over myself and not even want to go there in my mind of expecting a compliment. Just blocking it, not blocking the compliment out, but blocking the need for a compliment out, and just be totally focused on what can I do to say some little word that might build somebody up. And so I started a half hour before every service. When I was awkward, it was like a fish out of water. It wasn't who I was. I don't know what you think about all this, but it wasn't me at all. And I just forced myself to do it, just to touch each person with some little word, not expecting anything, just refusing to have any expectation, anything coming back. And eventually, it got to be who I was. You kind of said that in what you had to say there a minute ago. It just became natural, but it wasn't natural.
Yeah, it's one of those things. Like when I watch you now, I can tell you you're not. It's not an active. It doesn't seem like it's an active choice. It's just how you interact with people.
Yep. Well, it's such a way of life that I find myself subconsciously, not consciously anymore, thinking of what can I say that's going to be some little help to them.
Yeah, it seems very instinctive.
It's not. I don't have to force myself to think about it.
Yeah.
If anything, I had to force myself to tone it down a bit.
What are some of the things that keep people from, like, what were some of the hang-ups maybe early on that kept you, you mentioned a couple times about not looking for something back or not looking.
Yeah.
Like, what are some of the hang-ups, I guess, that maybe keep people from wanting to embrace just being an encouragement to others?
Well, it goes back to my pet peeve here, kind of, is our insecurities.
Yeah.
And we're so focused on ourselves and so focused on needing affirmation, and I don't think there's ever a time when you just don't want it.
Yeah.
I mean, you're glad for it, but you can't be looking for it. You got to be looking as how you can affirm others, and so. Tell me the question again.
What are the things that kind of keep you? I think you answered the question. Yeah. It is insecurity that kind of maybe having a mentality that says if I give you encouragement, what about me?
Yeah.
Or even just that you don't pay enough attention to other people to have a good thing to say about them.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like if you're only thinking about you,
Yeah.
It's hard to, like it does take, it's not hard to do, but it does take intentionality just to develop that habit of when you look at someone, go, what's a good thing about them? And then say it.
It is self, isn't it? Because like I know some people that maybe wouldn't say something nice, not because they necessarily want to get something back, but they don't trust their ability to articulate it. They're like, I'll sound dumb.
Yep.
But you're still thinking about yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah,
like itself is still undermining.
Yeah. And the truth is, now, I'm telling you, This cannot be the motive, and I honestly can say it was never my motive unless I'm totally deceived. You can't stop the encouragement from coming back. The more you give it, the more it comes back.
Yeah.
And that's not the reason for doing it. But I have a lot of my pastor friends who feel like they're not being appreciated. I felt like I was overappreciated. Yeah. I mean, I felt almost embarrassed.
What did our Lord say? Give and it will be given to you.
Exactly.
Yeah. It's a real thing.
And when you say that, you bring a story. And I went to the church one morning. Had been up all night the night before, Saturday night. And it was a devastating, tormenting situation. And I didn't want to see anybody. I didn't want to preach. I didn't want to be in church. I just wanted to do what I had to do. And so I intended to go to my office and wait till that service start, not have to talk to anybody. And then when the service started, do what I have to do and preach, and then head for the office. Walk into the church. And that verse of scripture hits me. Wow. Give, and it shall be given unto you. Doesn't say give if you got it.
Yeah.
It just says give it. Well, if you give what you're supposed to give, I believe we got a God that will give you what you need in order to be able to give it.
Yeah.
And so I started, and it was as fake as it could possibly be. Just doing everything I could to say some little word to any person I saw.
Some people call that fake.
Yep.
We call it faith.
Yeah.
Right?
Well,
We're just like,
there you go.
You're doing it in faith.
And now this could be a God thing, it could be the state I was in, or a combination of both. But the words of encouragement that started coming back to me before that service started, by the time it was time for the service to begin, man alive, I had a spring in my step and a smile on my face and a fire in my spirit. Went up there, preached like a house of fire, and then came back down and did the same thing over. I like what the black preacher said, and I love black preaching. I think I was supposed to be born black. But anyway, he said, cast your bread upon the water, and it will return unto you, toasted with butter and jam on it. Well, I'm telling you what, the more you give, the more it comes back.
It does.
I'm always fascinated when it comes to encouragement with, I've had a handful just very recently, is I guess why it's sticking out to me, but of people who've said encouraging things to me, and that's, which I love, but 3 or 4 people prefaced it with, you probably get this all the time, but, and it's like, that's fine. Yeah. Like if there's something encouraging, like if you're thinking about, I should say this encouraging thing to someone, but they probably already know, or someone's probably already, like, the worst case scenario is you're the 2nd or 27th person to tell. They're not going to resent that. Yeah. No one's going to go, oh, really? You think I'm good at this? Or you really respect this about me? Yeah. Cool. You're like the 8th guy to say that. Would you lay off? Like, no one's ever bothered. No one's ever died of too much encouragement.
I'd like to just take this a step further. I don't know. There's pastors that listen to this podcast. I think
not
there might
really.
be some pastors.
Mostly normal people.
Civilians.
Yeah, civilians.
But anyway, here's my theory. If I can love on the people before the service, even if I'm not talking to a particular, it's vicarious. Somebody see me being accepting and encouraging to somebody, that they get the same feeling themselves as if I were being encouraging to them. And so therefore, when it comes to time for the service, they're going to be far more open to hearing what I got to say, just because of how I've tried to be accepting and encouraging and building building people up, et cetera, et cetera. And they're going to notice far less the negatives that might be happening. They're going to be focused on the positive. If they go into a cold situation, whether they don't get any acceptance, it doesn't have to be from the pastor, but from anybody, and they just walk into a cold thing, they're going to notice the negatives, and they're going to not be as enthusiastic about the preaching, even though it might be a little better. Who knows?
Yeah.
And so
that encouragement can be contagious.
Really,
yeah,
absolutely.
it can.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and so can discouragement. I think.
That's for sure.
I think
more so. Maybe
we got to be. What's the analogy? You can be a thermostat, or you can be a thermometer.
Yeah.
You know, when you enter a room, it's hard though, man. It's hard to sometimes. Like I identify with the weeks you just want to hide, step out, do your thing, and get out of there because the sheep bite.
Yeah.
you get bit enough times.
I'm glad you said that. Yeah. I'd like to say one more thing about that. I know pastors who just won't do that because of the sheep biting, and it takes away from their message, and they just feel it's going to harm what the most important thing is. What I determined to do is be on the offensive, to get ahead of anybody saying anything to me. And so rarely did I get any pushback or some negative thing going. And if that did happen, which would be an exception, I'd say, give me a call next week. We'll talk about this some more.
You are an immovable force of positivity, sir. I have a couple. We're going to get to a lightning round in a second, but I have a couple questions just on your overall leadership, and specifically for people who don't know, Dr. B, how many years did you pastor at Moncton Wesleyan?
45.
45 years. That's such an exceptional, not like, that's just not the norm. Like just both duration and even in the time that you did that, like I think AJ alluded to it earlier, it was much more common for pastors to do a few years, go find another place and just kind of, move around a lot, be more itinerant.
Right.
And you chose to kind of double down on your call to Moncton. And I guess the big question I would have for you is, I guess, what led into that? Because that was kind of a zag from what some of your colleagues were doing at the time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then follow-up question to that, what was the secret? Because it's one thing to say yes to the call. Like I'm in the middle of what I and I've told you this before, I very much feel like, Lord willing, and if my health stays, I'll probably do 40 years at King's Church, and I'm halfway there. Yeah. You can say yes to that call, but finishing it is a whole different thing. Yep. And 40 years is a long time, 45 years. Yep. So what are your keys to longevity?
You can ask anything I'd be much more enthused about and answering. First of all, the norm was 3 or 4 years when I first started to be in the. And that was John Wesley set that pace, and that was kind of a rule
Methodist thing, right?
Anyway, I read a book by Elmer Towns about the largest churches in North America, which are all in the United States, and he said the pastors of those churches had been there an average of 26 years. Now, when you're thinking of 3 years, you imagine what 26 years would sound. I thought, that's crazy. Who in the world's going to stay in a place for 26 years? And that was the average. And so I've come to realize that you cannot see a great work for God. And when I say great work for God, what I am thinking about is people's lives being transformed by the power of the gospel and hearts being changed. And you want to see as much of that happen as you can possibly see happen. The result of that is the place is going to grow. But that's not the main motive, just to have growth, is to see people's lives transformed. Well, anyway, and so you can see a long-term ministry without much anything happening. But you will never see much of anything happen without a long-term ministry.
That's good, yeah.
Yeah. And so I had to knuckle down and realize that. Now, the answer to the other question, I think, is the answer, if I remember the question correctly.
On longevity. Is sustainability.
Yeah. I had to reinvent me. And that was tough. Reinvent how I did things, reinvent methodology and a lot of things. The church did not resemble anything like, even a church service didn't resemble what it was like when I first went there.
Was that more your evolution as you aged, or was that more the evolution of the times? Like, because you would have led through several shifts in how church was done.
Well, I had to make shifts because of the changing times. I was either forced into it or stagnate.
Right.
One of the two. And I remember one time I was going through the worst of it, and we had plateaued, and I cannot stand plateauing. And I almost bought into that Peter principle. I had built something that was bigger than I was able to handle. And started thinking that way, and all at once I just got mad at me. You don't have to buy into that. You need to see what it takes to grow, see what it takes to do what is necessary to go on to the next level.
Have you ever I've had a few instances where I've had the conversation with myself, okay, I'm going to fire myself. and start over? And what would the guy that came in after me just immediately start doing?
Well, I didn't think of it in those terms, but that's exactly what I had to do. I remember thinking through the greatest churches in North America. What makes them what they are? And listen, there's some great churches. There are some great, and yours is one of them, by the way. There's never been anything like it in Atlantic Canada. There's what's happening at King's Church. Never, ever in the history of Atlantic Canada. And so what is it? Well, most likely that those people were, on a scale of 1 to 10, they were probably a 9 or a 10 in leadership capability. That's the way my mind worked, whether it's right or wrong. So I said to myself, where are you? At this time when I was trying to figure things out. Well, maybe I'm a 7. My wife would probably say a 3. And so what am I going to have to do here? What have I got to do to go up to at least a 9? And so then I started thinking those things through and prioritizing what were 4 or 5, and this is where my mind worked. Probably those leaders, they got thousands of things that are shouting at them. So they've had to figure out 4 or 5 things that are not negotiable, that they're not going to compromise on as far as their focus and their leadership. And what would those 4 or 5 things be? And so I ran those by 2 or 3 of these people that I so highly regarded, and they concurred. What I had concluded was the thing that was going to be necessary. And so I began to put an extreme, heavy-duty focus on those 4 or 5 things and not let anything compromise the importance of those things. Now, a lot more to it than that, but that's generally speaking.
But related to the kind of longevity question, you came kind of to prominence as a church leader in an era where most guys seemed like they wanted to kind of climb the ladder. They wanted to become a district superintendent, or they wanted to go work at headquarters or whatever.
Yeah, perverted values.
What is it that kept you? I'm sure you had those opportunities. What is it that kept you from taking any of those and going, no, I'm going to stay right here dialed in the local church?
Well, again, I've got to go back. I'm not very mystical. I'm going to sound mystical. I wish I was more than I am. It was a God thing. When I was going through the worst hell as we were trying to see things go forward, and it was never happened before in Atlantic Canada, and people weren't understanding it. I was a Jim Jones and a Jimmy Swaggart and a Jimmy Baker all in one.
You're glad your name wasn't Jimmy.
That's right. So anyhow, and I received a call, or not a call, an inquiry to what was then the largest church in our denomination. And John Maxwell and the district superintendent there kept after me, wanting me to consider it. And I wanted out of Moncton more than anybody wanted me out of Moncton because of what I was going through. But I couldn't do it. I just couldn't do it. Yeah. And one of the things that stood in my mind, whether it's right or wrong, is the regret I might have if I made the wrong move. Now, here's what's interesting. After we built the new 2,000-seat auditorium, in the summertime, a couple came to our church, and the guy said, "Do you remember me?" And it looked a little bit familiar. And this was about 2010, maybe. And I said, "Well, you look familiar." He said, "Well, we came here in 1981 to try to get you to come to San Diego to pastor our church." And I said, "Oh, yes, I remember you guys now." And then he said something I thought was kind of vindicating. He said, "We would give our right arm to have a facility like this."
Wow.
I thought, well, now they've got a nicer facility now, but they went through an awful lot to get to where they are. So I thought, well, that's kind of a nice little vindication.
Yeah.
That whole idea of like the potential regret, I think there's some like decision-making wisdom in that. Like sometimes when I'm really torn on something, one of the filters I'll process that through is what has the highest regret profile, right? Yeah. Like I will do things that if it doesn't work out, I might regret it because God called me to or whatever. But when you're just, when it's kind of a wisdom decision to go like, okay, if I do A and it goes poorly, how much will I regret that? Versus if I do B and it goes poorly, how much will I regret that?
And I'm picking this up in what you're saying, Dr. B, though, when it comes to like calling, at the end of the day, it really is, you can weigh the pros and cons. Like I've had job offers in quote unquote greener pastures. And you weigh the pros and cons. You're like, oh, maybe this would be fun there, or no, but it's really special that I get to serve in Atlantic Canada and do something that's never been done before, and that's really cool. Mm-hmm. At the end of the day, that's kind of a moot point. It's like I know I'm called here, and I've got one person ultimately to answer to about it, and until he tells me this is not where I have you, it's kind of a moot conversation, honestly. It's not for me. I'm not supposed to be in Dallas. Could I be leading a large church in Dallas? Yeah. Probably.
I used to do a lot of preaching.
Then you'd be in Dallas.
I'd love to be in Texas.
I used to do a lot of preaching around.
Open carry? Are you serious? I'd have a gun. I'd have it like double.
You get that in Maine, bro. You don't got to go all the way to Dallas.
I used to do a lot of preaching at conferences and so on, of pastors' other kinds of conferences. And I remember being in a conference in Virginia, and I was having a great time preaching. And this guy came up to me afterwards. He said, "Why in the world would you stay in Podunk, Moncton, where there are no people, and if you go a little bit further, you'll slide right off the face of the earth, when you could be in a big city and see a church of 10,000? Well, when people say things like that, it does have an impact, because you want to be the best steward you can possibly be. That's been my biggest decision in anything and everything, is stewardship decisions. Where and how can we get the greatest return on the investment? And I was a little bit torn. But in those days, we didn't have King's Church, and a lot of other churches are really going forward. And there was a lack of believability in Atlantic Canada, not only in the church world, it's also in the secular world. There was an inferior mindset. And I thought the back of that has got to be broken. God is just as great, can be just as great for Atlantic Canada as he can for California or Ontario or Texas or wherever. But there's a lack of believability. And I thought, we may never get a church of 10,000, but if we have a church of 1,500 or 2,000, that's the way my thinking was then, it will be unprecedented, and it will help people who don't think it can happen in Atlantic Canada to believe, yes, maybe it can happen here. Totally. Because the only way they're going to believe it can happen here is for somebody to see it happen here. Yeah.
I agree with you on that. I just don't think I need it. I think I've come to a place, though, now, and I would wonder if at the end of the day, like I have that layer of, self-talk or whatever to keep motivating me, but it only goes so far. And then there has to be a deeper layer of just like the simple, I want to steward my gifts well. Yeah. I want to use my life for maximum return. But there is one notch deeper or higher, depending on how you want to look at it, where it's like ultimately God gets to steward Brent Ingersoll, though. And it's like he can dispatch me to Podunk, St. John, or to Washington, D.C., or wherever he wants to use me. And like that's going to be the highest return on my investment.
Well, that's after everything is said and done. It ended, I would say it ended up having to be a God thing.
I find myself getting more exhausted if I stay in that category of, is this worth my life? Yeah. Yeah. Like if I'm just doing all the math. Yeah. I find the math exhausts me. But if I can just take it one notch deeper, where it's like, has the Lord asked me to do this? Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
I had a coach once who used to say, you just know it in your knower.
Yeah.
Whatever that place is where you just know.
I feel great about it, because and you probably had this. I know this is the back corner. We get insiders sometimes, but like I've been in rooms where, and God's been really kind to me, as He did you in your day, where you have friends with famous people. You're friends with famous people. Yep. Big platforms. And I used to think when I was going to those rooms, like I got to figure out my angle on why I should be here. Yeah. And that's kind of dissipated for me,
Yeah.
where it's just like, you know what? Like, I just belong to God. I'm content doing what he's asked me to do. I think it's very significant for what it's worth. And if you want to ask me questions about it, I'll tell you. But I don't need people to vindicate my ministry.
No.
I guess
that's a good thing. You don't need it. But it with me, because of it being kind of unprecedented, what we were trying to do back then, now it's unprecedented, that I had so many pastors say, what has given me the courage to keep going and seeing the breakthroughs that we have seen is what I have seen God do through.
Well, you think when Moncton crossed, say, the 500 line, how many other churches in Atlantic Canada were there with 500 or more people in them?
Yeah, none.
Right.
Yeah.
And now there's not dozens, but there's multiple.
Yeah.
And no, I think absolutely there's great things happening in a whole bunch of different churches.
Now there's multiple over 1,000 in Atlantic Canada.
Yeah.
Amazing.
That you were, what
had never been done before.
What God used you to do was the proof of concept for those churches, and it did stretch that. Okay. And even, the handful of churches that have maybe even moved but beyond that, it was kind of, not a this can't be done. It was more of a, well, if Buckingham could do that much, what if we can,
describing myself as I did earlier in the
but
podcast.
Genuinely, like just all that to say, like, that thing that you felt like God wanted you to stay here and accomplish, I think you definitely did.
Well, I think, and here's this bottom line here and get off this, but really, there could be more that get to heaven in the long run than 10,000.
Absolutely.
There could be many more.
The multiplying effect, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, I don't just say it to be an encouragement to you, like just for the sake of encouragement. Like, this church would not be what it is if you didn't do, and the people of Moncton Wesleyan who walked with you, it wasn't a one-man thing. We wouldn't be experiencing what we're experiencing.
Well, I don't know about that. I think.
Oh, I do. I mean, God might have used somebody else, but I can directly
talk about an encouraging word, and it's those kinds of things that's made it so worthwhile. I don't have any bad feelings about some of the hell that we went through.
Yeah, you enabled us to, we got 600 baptisms in the last 2.5 years now.
So glorifying to God.
So
Hallelujah.
it's pretty cool, what we're experiencing.
It's incredible.
It's not all roses, though. One question I would ask you.
Sure
so wisdom definitely is something we develop over the years, having seen a lot of data and had a lot of experience. As you look at the church today, and I know you always look at it from possibility and believability, but what would you say in the last, handful of years, over the 50 years even, you've been really active? What are some things you think have changed for the better? And maybe what are some things that you see happening? You're like, oh, maybe we're losing something there that we should, if we could go back and recover this, we maybe you threw the baby out with the bathwater.
Well, I think, and I may not, if I had time to think about it, this might not be
We're just springing
answer.
it on you.
But just to give what first thing that comes to my mind is there's been so much greater emphasis on the importance of leadership and what real leadership is all about. I never even heard the word when I first started. And there was not much happening anywhere. But because there's been such a strong emphasis on leadership and an emphasis on perseverance that pays. One of the things that concerns me, and I'm not saying it's any worse than it's ever been and going back to the good old days or anything like that. In fact, I think it's far better today than it was back in those days. But I think there is a lack of willingness to pay the price. And everybody is so used to having it so easy in today's culture compared with 75 or 100 years ago or 200 years ago when everybody pretty much had it hard.
When you were just starting out.
Yeah, when I was just starting out, it was kind of the expected.
After the Civil War, everybody.
I know, exactly. Sure thing. And so I think it's just subconsciously easy to get an entitlement mentality where everybody should be treating me in such and such a way. And I just I just hate an entitlement mentality. That because of who I am or a title or what I've accomplished or whatever, I deserve certain things.
Yeah.
And I just feel like when I think of people like Nehemiah who say what God put in my heart to do, and I mean, it was a God thing to build up these broken down walls. And then when he was getting more flack than any of us have ever had. I remember reading that whole book one time when I was feeling sorry for myself, the book of Nehemiah. And after I finished reading that book, I looked in the mirror and said, you whining, weakling wimp, get with a program, stand up here and stick with it. And I said, like Nehemiah, we will arise and we will build. And truly, there's more of an emphasis on the need for that. Yeah. Maybe there's less of it. I don't know. Yeah. But there's sure.
What's that book comes to mind? Failure of Nerve.
Yeah, I've heard of that.
Oh shoot, I'm trying to think of the author. But yeah, that whole concept, like just grit and conviction, and just a willingness to just get up and keep going.
That's one book I read, the whole book, Grit on Grit.
Oh yeah,
the whole book written on grit. But all that was illustrations reinforcing that the people who have succeeded are people who had the grit to stick with it. And if there's any place where it seems like we would want to see that grit manifested, it should be in the Church of Jesus Christ.
Do you find the pendulum swing? And there was probably a time where
Edwin Friedman, Failure of Nerve, Edwin Friedman.
Yeah. But like, I agree with you. It seems like we're like society, not just the church, but society could use a little more backbone, a little more conviction, a little more, just show up, but it maybe on the heels of, maybe 2 decades where maybe that was overemphasized to the point where you have people with mental illness because of it. You have fractured families because of it and all that. So it just seems to me that the pendulum keeps swinging too far one way or the other.
And something, it's hard. It's even hard for the individual to keep the pendulum from swinging from side to side. Like when I'm strong and feel, we just need some grit, then you can get a little bit away from the spiritual side of it to some degree. Or if you're on the spiritual side of it too much, you get away from
it's all robotic
the grit side.
Yeah.
And so it's certainly a combination of both.
Attention to be managed.
Absolutely.
Do you want to hit some lightning round?
Yeah, I think let's get into the lightning round.
Random questions.
Yeah.
Quick answers that you didn't even think through. You might want to take back.
I got to give the answers.
Yeah.
It's your lightning round.
Craziest thing you've ever seen in a church service?
It's the first thing that comes to my mind.
Sure.
That might not be the craziest thing. A man in our church who didn't know how to baptize, he was from another church and wanted to use, and the church was packed full of people, and he would put the person down and hold them under. And there was this woman that wouldn't go in, and I hadn't known what was going on. I was downstairs getting some of our people lined up for the baptism. We had a whole bunch who were baptizing that night. And I come out, this woman was standing there. She said, I don't want to go in there. I don't want to go in there. And I said, you got to go in. I just whispered across, And the guy was just standing there, frozen. The pastor, he had social problems. And anyway, so I saw after she kicked her kicked her clothes up over herself, and
she was like struggling.
It was awful. And the people in the congregation, one guy couldn't, he told me after, I couldn't watch it. I had to close my eyes. And he said, I saw a big headline in the Times and Transcript, the Moncton paper. Woman drowns in baptistry of Wesleyan Church. So I said, I had to open my eyes and see it happen. So, answer your question?
Yeah, that's great. Love it.
All right. Some advice you would give your younger self. If you could talk to yourself.
Well, the main thing would be to find out what I needed to find out in order to be Christ-centered and to see the critical importance of living a holy life. That doesn't mean being perfect. I just mean the way I think, how I act, my attitude, and all the rest. Because if we don't have that going on internally, which I finally learned the importance of having that going on internally, then we depend on external things to give us our security and our confidence.
Yep.
Other end of the spectrum, what's some advice you would give to other people as they come into some of their kind of older years?
People 10 years behind you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, again, to find out what real humility is all about. And to me, humility is not what a lot of people think it is, trying to take a back seat and put yourself down and all that. To me, humility, when I can get to the place where I can receive criticism and critiquing without defensiveness.
Wow.
And that takes a certain level of
Absolutely.
security and openness and wanting to be Christ-like.
Wow.
What's your favorite moment in ministry? If you look back, what just stands out when you think back over the years? Like, that was just special for me.
And this is nothing unusual for you, but for us, it was probably one of the great highlights. And this is the first thing that comes to mind. That's probably, if I had time to think about it, I might think of other things. The Sunday we baptized 101 people.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And know what that meant as a pastor in transformed lives. And to see the rejoicing.
Oh, yeah.
And, we're not Pentecostal, but a lot of people thought we were that day.
What's the most miraculous moment in ministry you've experienced?
The most
probably
miraculous-
that, but aside from 100 people taking that step of faith,
Absolutely.
what's the maybe most like?
I would say the most miraculous moment was when we needed $250,000 and we weren't able to pay our bills. That only happened one time for 1 month, so it's not something that happened and often. But we were, and I fasted for a whole week, and I know you're not supposed to talk about fasting, but for the sake of this podcast, I'm gonna, and didn't have a thing to eat except water to drink, and that was it. No juice, no nothing. And praying desperately because we tried every man-made scheme known to man. The bank wouldn't give us any more money. And we were just in an awful state. And one morning, I'm sitting there in my office early in the morning. I left the office this morning at 5:30, and I usually go early in the morning. I was sitting there. I had my feet up on the desk, which is kind of doesn't mean anything to this conversation, but just praying, God help us. And all at once, just a floodgate hit me of what we needed to do. And it was like, if you do that, you've got your $250,000. It was just like somebody coming in to the room and giving me $250,000. Wow. It was such a God thing. I don't have that happen. I'm not that kind of a person. I wish I were more, but it just flooded me. And I wrote things down just as fast as I could write, trying to keep up with what was coming to mind. And the next Sunday, I stood before the people and I said, 2 weeks from tonight, we're going to have $250,000 come into this church. You want to be here? You'll miss it if you don't. And I spoke it with such confidence, such conviction, not faking a little bit. I was just certain it was going to happen. I didn't have to put on a front of some kind. It was just real to me. And anyway, bottom line, a couple of people disobeyed God because we had $5,000 more than what we needed.
Wow. Oh, man.
That's wild.
And when people went out, and we were still in a little bit of a polarized situation, people that didn't even like me went out that night, tears streaming down their face. I know it's going to happen, Pastor. And here's one, the next day, the very next morning, people started coming in with their checks of $2,500 each. That was the idea. Wow. And one woman came in on Thursday. I'd said this on Sunday. She said, here's your $2,500 check. She said, I have lost 4 nights sleep over this. I'm not going to lose any more sleep. So here's your check.
Wow.
Awesome.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Beautiful.
What's your least favorite thing about being a pastor?
Well,
I'm going to try to drag you into the negativity before we're done here.
We're going to get a complaint out of you one way or the other.
I love it. Well, it probably is. I tell you what gets me more than anything else is stupid.
Stupidity.
So true.
It's pretty good, yeah.
Yeah.
And when it's just plain.
Like the person that comes to you with a thought and the thought never occurred to them that you have already crossed that bridge and had that thought.
Well,
that's my favorite.
I'm telling you.
Oh, I've never considered that.
Things that come out of ignorance that is more stupid than you could ever think possible. That's what pushes my button more.
They must all go to Moncton Wesleyan. I don't know any of that.
I do love like the people who whatever, like we're gonna have to, buy whatever, and they come up and go, that's expensive. Yeah, we actually looked up the price before we, you know what I mean? Or like, we're gonna preach through this whole book of the Bible. That's gonna take a long time. Yeah, I know. I'm familiar with which book of the yeah.
Oh, that's a good answer.
Yeah, I like that. You are known for your fastidiousness with caring for your vehicles.
That's a good segue.
What is a or a few car care products you swear by?
Oh, car care products. Well, there's a new one that has come out. It's called the 1 minute wax or something like that. And you just spray it on. It's you can't even buy it in Canada. I have to smuggle across the border. Oof. And
with the tariffs,
and and you can spray it on the vehicle, and it does a beautiful job. Now, probably has to have a base under that is wax and so on to make it the best, but it's fast and easy to do. And
nice.
I like fast and easy to do.
Well, that's a good segue to get to our Mountainous Top 4, where we rank random things. And today's Mountainous Top 4. Top 4 vehicles you have owned. Top 4 vehicles.
Top 4 vehicles
you have owned.
Right now, I have a GMC Denali.
Oh, what like a?
It's a SUV. That's
the Yukon.
Big SUV. It's a 6.2 motor.
Yeah.
So it's got good size. It's lots of power. 400 horsepower.
Do you like power?
I love power.
How do you feel about speed?
And that too. And then I had a car. It was an Oldsmobile Aurora, which was kind of ahead of its time for the time. That was one of my favorite vehicles. I had a Lincoln Continental given to me way back in the 70s.
Wow.
And I had that right up until this summer. Sold it.
Really? Wow.
Yeah. And the guy that bought it he knows what he's doing. He's got it working beautiful, and I'm just feeling it's over at Browns Flat, which is not far from
kidding.
here. Yeah, or no, Grand Bay. That's where he lives. And what's that? 2?
That's 3.
That's 3.
I think I had what they call an entry-level Lexus. There was a Lexus ES 300, and the thing I loved about it, it had an adjustable suspension. You could go from comfort to sport, and I use that adjustable suspension all the time. If I'm on a rough street in Moncton, which they're all rough, then I would have it on comfort. I was going around turn to get on the main highway or something, and I didn't have to slow down. I'd put it on comfort.
Fire on the afterburners when you wanted the speed.
Yes, sir.
I like it.
I love it.
Love it.
Want me to go?
Sure.
All right, my top 4. I haven't owned very many vehicles, or cars anyway, so it's not the most exciting list if I go that route. So I'm going vehicles, and I'm taking liberty on the term vehicle.
Go for it.
Number 4, I had an Articat 600 ATV. I enjoyed that. My current vehicle is a Hyundai Palisade. It's worked fine. I like it.
Beautiful vehicle.
14-foot John boat.
There you go.
Number 3. I like
Waiting for that to show up.
And then probably put the most miles on my 10-speed bike I got for my 10th birthday.
There you go.
So
Wow.
I still remember it. My parents had it in our living room up on my birthday before school. I remember the day. It was my 10-speed bike. I was 10 years old.
Nothing but respect.
Yeah.
This is just in order that I owned them, not top to bottom, but first car we bought when we first got married was a 98 Ford Taurus.
Oh, yeah.
I love that. It was like a couch on wheels. It was wonderful. We did many a long road trip in it. I'm not saying it was a great vehicle, but I have a lot of happy memories from it. And then I got both my Jeeps. I had a 97 Jeep TJ. I just loved, you talk about suspension, man. There's, everything that's going on in the road when you're driving a Jeep. You bump over. Yeah, they haven't paved this in 6 years. You can just feel it right up to. And then I had an 07 Jeep TJ or Jeep JK that I loved. It was a little fancier than the TJ, and I preferred the more rough and ready TJ, but the JK was good. And then currently I'm driving a 2017 Honda CR-V Touring Edition. And in terms of actually a reasonably nice vehicle, good for long road trips and stuff, it's the best one we've ever had. I love it.
There it is.
Right.
Not the most impressive list, but yours was good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, sir, thank you for coming on The Back Corner.
Yes, we've loved having you.
It has
Love
been
being
a
here.
lot of fun.
It's great.
And to the dozens, we will see you next time.